also have microbial stimulators, right? So say you've got a, reasonably active soil, but it just went through a weather stress event. You might use something like a microbial stimulator instead of an actual microbe to make the soil health come alive again. Natural pesticides. So, I see anybody read the blog that we put out this week on thyme oil. There's a lot of really cool natural pesticides that are being made now that are hitting the market. Each one of them has certain niches, certain really, really targeted modes of action on some specific pests. And then some of them have really broad spectrum benefits to cropping systems, such as, so like I mentioned in the article, we've seen huge attraction of lacewings and ladybugs when thyme oil is applied to crops. I mean, it's almost like, you spray it 1 week and then you walk out in the field and you will see, mature lacewings or, immature lacewings, lady beetles, et cetera, to the point where, some of our growers, were not super excited about how many ladybugs they had seen when they'd done high rates of some essential oil sprays. Point being from this slide, though, that I want you to take away, these are different categories of inputs, and each one of them has its use and its way that it can be kind of regulated or down-regulated within a plant and soil cropping system, right? And some of them you can use together for synergistic benefits. Some of them will actually antagonize one another when used improperly. And so you start to get into this situation where you really need qualified folks that are dedicated to, really digging under the hood of some of these other inputs and, making them work, because the benefits are extreme in some cases when you do, for instance, some soluble carbon plus a nanoparticle suspension and a living microbe, right? It's a really common boom, 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 1, 2, 3 that we do with a lot of our growers. And a lot of the recommendations that we put out through Apical also have similar types of recommendations with them. Okay. So, decisions, right? So everybody's got to figure out, what's going to be right for them in their, how far along they are on the journey, where they need to go, how they're going to get there, which inputs are going to be, more helpful or less in their individual system. So, you're growing, your goals, your budget, what your data is saying from your leaf and soil analysis. If you've got access to microbial analysis, or if you're working with a qualified microbial soil food web consultant, you'll have some potential data there. Another thing that folks that I didn't kind of touch on, I probably should have at the outset, is, water analysis is actually sometimes where, is the biggest of blind spots, right? So there's a lot of water quality issues across the country and certainly across the world. And when not properly attended to, there's real problems. If, you could go years and years of applying high sodium or high sulfur or high iron to water to a cropping system, building up, toxicity to extreme levels. So we're hoping to have some really exciting webinars later in the series on how to do some different types of water conditioning, target ranges, and just overall data science. One of the things we do here, in at Apical also is we do a lot of quick compares, right? So where we compare a healthy crop to a sick crop, through the database, or, we'll pull a sample from a given field. We'll say, okay, this part of the field has insect or disease, and this other one over here is actually performing quite well. And, once you start to use some of these data points in coordination with in-field observations, a whole new range of opportunities opens up. Okay. Something else that we've talked significantly about, and I know there was some relatively low budget produced webinars that I've given in the past on this topic that circulated online, surrounding crop nutrient excesses. I'm not going to get super detailed into this today, but the less of these that you do in terms of excess, I'm not saying that you don't want all of these, because they all are important in their own way, but we see oftentimes an over application or just a natural excess of oil environments to a lot of these different potential excesses here. That said, there are potential excesses. Every element can become a potential excess. And we have a really cool nutrient stress guide coming out sometime later this spring. Not sure exactly when it's going to hit the airwaves, but I'll be sure to let you guys know when it does. But basically it's a guide to show you all of the potential benefits of the entire range of analytes that we look for, and their potential benefits as or drawbacks as a deficiency in access and essentially what the functionalities are in the cropping system. We'll pretty excited about that. So stay tuned for that one. And so again, carbon is where you want more is more, right? Not to the point of, let's go dump a whole bunch of sawdust on our field, to the tune of thousands of tons, but it's, carbon is how nature cycles life and how nature complexes life and makes it all fit together, right? So carbon is like, if you could inject a little bit of carbon into, potentially the American political system, maybe there would be some good, some better outcomes, because really has a way of buffering a lot of the bad and facilitating a lot of good, and like I said a few minutes ago, organic means with carbon. And so, for those of you that kind of have a stigmatism attached to the word organic, I'd like to just maybe encourage you to really understand what that word means. It just means with carbon, right? You may have it attached to a, picture of, more granola type growers, but ultimately there's a lot of, understanding benefits that just applying carbon with fertilizers can provide to every single cropping system practically. And there's a few different sources of it. Okay, so when you get into microbes, there's nitrogen fixers, phosphate solubilizers, mycorrhizas, different types of decomposers, desalinators, and disease suppressant. These are 6 key categories that we work with. And there's another one that, would be referred to as like the plant growth promoters. It's not on this list at the moment, but each one of them has, and there's a lot of guys out there that are really into the microbes, much more than I am myself. But what they're finding more and more and more is that, diversity is king. We've always known this, but there's each one of these microbes oftentimes can carry out specific functions in the soil, but then those functions depend upon other microbes and other microlife within the soil. And so, there's a huge push from big ag to come into the regenerative and organic space right now. And it's interesting because there's a lot of these, single strain microbes that are being, presented as, extremely beneficial. And in some cases they are, right? But, the microbes that we work with and that are available on our website, and there's whole hosts of them from multiple different manufacturers, each one of them we've seen work very, very well in their own way. We can't necessarily say that every microbe company that comes online from a new manufacturer is going to be a good or not, right? We just don't know. And so it's really important that you as growers start to, just look under the hood a little bit, maybe, run some microscopes or talk to your friend that has a microscope or seek out a soil food web consultant, because one of the things that we see is, oftentimes, when we do, compatibility, biological compatibility tests, in the lab or, in the shop here, we'll find that there's sometimes incredible synergy between potentially one manufacturer's biostimulant and another one's microbe. And so this is what, at Apical, we've been able to start to unpack. We're not saying we have it all nailed by any stretch of the imagination, but how to work across from, multiple different manufacturers and make them work in a synergistic way for growers and consultants across the country, that they can really use these inputs and techniques, technologies in an organized way. There's a lot of excitement these days about silicon and different types of silicon dioxide products. So there's a few of them that are listed here. Some of them are also available in different forms from different manufacturers on our website. I would say that we see a lot of benefits from silicon applications across the board in both soil and foliar applied if the formulations are appropriate. We also see silicon acting similarly to carbon in certain ways as a major buffer. But, if you're using any of the silicon dioxide products, they're not necessarily thought of as being purely plant available, but they do oftentimes help to buffer soil excesses and toxins.